I will never forget the way the air felt that night. Sharp, frozen, filled with that quiet tension Christmas Eve always carries in our family. The house was glowing with warm lights, laughter floated from the living room, and the fireplace crackled like a heartbeat in the corner. Everything looked perfect from the outside. Perfect tree, perfect dinner, perfect smiles. But nothing inside me felt perfect. I had sensed something was wrong long before the evening even began. My husband, Daniel, had been restless all week, avoiding certain questions, hesitating before answering simple things, carrying a tension in his shoulders that he tried to hide with forced jokes. And his family, especially his sister Claire, kept exchanging glances whenever I entered the room, the kind of glances people give when they know something you don't. I kept telling myself I was imagining it. It was Christmas. Families were stressful. People were tired. But when Claire approached me after dinner, her face pale and too serious for the holiday, I knew instantly that this was the moment everything had been building toward. "Can I talk to you?" she whispered, touching my arm lightly. "Privately." Her voice shook, my stomach dropped. We slipped down the hallway into the small laundry room, the only quiet corner in a house full of voices. The moment she closed the door behind us, silence pressed in like a weight. She didn't speak at first. She just stared at me, her eyes filled with something between fear and guilt. "Claire, what is it?" I whispered. She swallowed hard, glanced at the door, then leaned closer. "On Christmas Eve, I promised myself I wouldn't say anything, but I can't keep watching this. You deserve the truth." My knees weakened instantly. A cold wave washed down my spine. Her words were too heavy, too rehearsed, too final. "What truth?" I asked, barely breathing. She hesitated again, as if choosing between loyalty and morality. Then she exhaled and said something that made my whole world tilt. "It's about Daniel," she whispered, "and what he's been hiding from you." I felt the floor shift beneath me. The room suddenly felt too small, too quiet, too dangerous. She reached into her pocket and handed me a folded envelope. Thin, old, soft around the edges. My name wasn't written on it, but Daniel's was, handwritten in a loop I didn't recognize. My hands shook as I held it. Where did you get this?" I asked. She looked at me with guilt so raw it almost hurt to see. "He asked me to destroy it," Claire said. "But I didn't. I couldn't. And now, I think you need to read it." I froze, staring at the envelope, feeling the weight of it like a stone burning my palm. Something inside me whispered that if I opened it, nothing in my life would remain the same. "What is this?" I asked. "It's the reason he's been acting strange," she said softly. "The reason he can't sleep at night. The reason he panics every time his phone buzzes." Her voice cracked slightly. "And the reason he never talks about last Christmas." I felt a cold shiver crawl up my spine. "What happened last Christmas?" I asked. Claire looked away. "It wasn't an accident," she whispered. "It was never an accident." My heart slammed in my chest so loudly I could hear it echo. "Claire," I said, my voice barely a whisper, "tell me." She closed her eyes, gathering strength, then looked straight at me. "You're about to learn something that will change the way you see him forever." The door suddenly creaked from the hallway. Voices grew louder. Someone laughed. Christmas music played softly in the background. But in that tiny room, the world felt frozen. "Read it when you're alone," she whispered urgently. "Not here, not now. And whatever you do, don't let him know I gave it to you." My breath caught. "Why?" Her voice dropped to an almost inaudible whisper. Because he's terrified of what you'll think when you learn the truth. She opened the door and slipped out, blending into the cheerful chaos like nothing had happened. I stood alone, the envelope shaking in my hand, feeling as if the ground beneath me had cracked open. For the rest of the evening, I forced a smile. I laughed at jokes I didn't hear. I hugged relatives I couldn't recall. All the while, the envelope felt like a burning coal in my pocket, its presence louder than all the music and chatter around me. Daniel kept watching me from across the room. Nervous glances, forced smiles, eyes that looked too bright, too alert. Every time our eyes met, something in his expression flickered, something he didn't want me to see. When the evening finally ended and the house emptied, I excused myself, claiming I needed to change. I went upstairs, closed the bedroom door, and locked it. The envelope trembled in my hands. I opened it, and inside was a letter that didn't belong in a Christmas Eve. A letter that didn't belong in any marriage. A letter that shouldn't have existed at all. A letter that began with a sentence that made my vision blur and my heart stutter. If you're reading this, then the truth has finally caught up to me. And with that sentence, my world began to unravel. I sank onto the edge of the bed, my hands gripping the envelope like it contained both the answers and the danger all at once. The letter's ink seemed almost to move under my eyes, twisting words into shapes that made my chest tighten. I had never been more afraid to read something in my life, but I couldn't stop myself. The first lines were a confession, one that tore through the image of Daniel I had carefully held in my mind for months, maybe years. He had made choices, hidden truths so carefully that no one, not even me, had been allowed to glimpse them. And now, with a trembling hand, I read every word, every admission, every detail, and the house seemed to vanish around me. He had done things I could not yet understand fully, things that might have destroyed him had they ever come to light in the wrong hands. Betrayals, secrets, moments of weakness that were hidden behind polite smiles, careful words, and the polished mask he wore around family and friends. My heart pounded not only from shock, but from the impossible burden of knowing that everything I believed might have been built on lies. I sank back against the headboard, the letter clutched to my chest, and my mind reeled. Could I forgive him? Could I even face him again, knowing what I now knew? Every Christmas memory I had with him, the laughter, the warmth, the quiet moments, felt suddenly fragile, like glass pressed against my fingers. I could feel the truth slicing through the years of carefully constructed normality, cutting into the foundation of our relationship. Hours passed and I barely noticed. My world had contracted to that single bedroom, that single letter, that single truth that seemed to pulse in the air around me. Then, a soft knock at the door startled me, and I froze. "Are you okay?" Daniel's voice called from the hallway. There was worry there, real worry, and yet I felt a flare of anger. How could he speak as if nothing had happened? How could he not know that my entire sense of trust had shifted in the past hours? I need time," I whispered, my voice barely audible. The hallway fell silent, but I could feel him lingering, uncertain, as if he feared crossing a line he could not undo. Minutes stretched, and I imagined him pacing, imagining him trying to figure out what had happened without knowing the half of it. Finally, I rose, letter in hand, and descended to the living room, where the last few family members lingered by the fire. Daniel was there, alone now, staring into the flames as if they could tell him what I already knew. I sat across from him, my hands trembling slightly as I held the envelope between us, like a fragile bridge connecting two worlds, the past and the present. "Daniel," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "I read it." He didn't respond immediately. His eyes widened slightly, fear mingling with anticipation, as if he were prepared for me to crumble or scream or throw the letter across the room. "What do you know?" he asked finally, voice low, almost pleading. "Everything," I said. The words sounded heavier than I expected, a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying. Every secret, every lie, every hidden truth you thought I would never find out. His face paled, and I could see the tension crackling across his features. He began, then stopped. His throat worked. "I didn't want you to find out this way, I swear. I tried to protect you, protect us." "Protect me?" I repeated sharply. "From what? From the truth?" He looked down at his hands, and I saw the man I loved and the man I barely recognized shatter into pieces before my eyes. "I made mistakes," he admitted, the words trembling out of him. "Mistakes I've regretted every single day. I thought I could fix them before you ever needed to know. I thought I could protect you from the chaos." I swallowed hard, struggling to control the mix of anger, sorrow, and aching love that battled inside me. "Chaos?" I asked. "Do you even realize what this means? How fragile everything feels now? How much it hurts to realize that the person I trusted the most has carried such secrets for years?" His head dropped further, voice breaking. "I know. I can't undo it. I can't erase what I've done. But I can tell you the rest. I can answer every question. I can be completely honest, even if it destroys me in the process." I studied him, every line of tension in his face, every flicker of fear and desperation. The firelight caught his eyes, and I saw vulnerability so raw it made my chest ache. I realized that despite everything, he was trying to choose truth over deception, even at the risk of losing me forever. And so I began to ask questions. Slowly, carefully, he answered every one, truth spilling out like fragile fragments of a shattered mirror, each one reflecting a side of him I had never seen, both the flawed and the real. Hours passed like minutes as the confession unfolded, a labyrinth of mistakes, regrets, and hidden emotions that had been buried beneath layers of silence. By the end of the night, I was exhausted, emotionally drained, raw, shaken, but also strangely alive. The secrets had been revealed, the facades had fallen, and in their place, something fragile but real began to emerge: understanding. The truth hurt, yes, but it also gave clarity, a path forward if we could navigate it together. I realized that Christmas Eve had changed everything, not just the holiday, not just the evening, but us, our relationship, and the life we were building together. The night had been a crucible, testing our love, our trust, and our courage to face reality. And though the road ahead was uncertain, I now knew one thing: we could face it, together, if we were willing to confront every shadow, every secret, and every truth that had long been hidden in the dark. The days after Christmas Eve were strange and tense. The house felt different, even though nothing had changed physically. Daniel moved around carefully, almost cautiously, as if afraid that any wrong step might shatter the fragile connection we were trying to rebuild. And I, in turn, felt both drawn to him and wary, as if every smile or word might conceal another secret I wasn't yet aware of. Claire, his sister, kept her distance, though her glances sometimes caught mine, sharp and knowing. She had been the one to hand me the truth, but she didn't explain why now, after everything had passed, she had chosen to step back. That mystery added to the tension, a constant reminder that not everything in this family was as it seemed. One evening, Daniel suggested we take a walk in the quiet park near our apartment. I hesitated, unsure if I was ready for even more closeness, but the cold night air seemed to demand movement, a way to escape the claustrophobic intensity of the house. We walked in silence at first, the crunch of snow beneath our boots the only sound. Finally, I broke the silence. Why didn't you ever tell me? Not about the letter, not about everything. My voice trembled, but I forced the words out. He stopped and faced me, eyes searching mine, heavy with regret. I thought I could fix it all before you had to know. I thought I could protect you from the hurt I had caused, from the mistakes I made before I knew what I truly wanted. But you didn't protect me, I said softly, shaking my head. You left me in the dark until someone else had to tell me your secrets. Do you understand how that feels? I do, he whispered, his voice breaking. I understand more than you know, and I'm sorry. Every single day. I can't change the past, but I can be honest now. I can be with you completely, if you let me. We walked for hours, talking in fragments, each conversation a careful negotiation between trust and fear. The park was nearly empty, shadows of trees stretching long across the snow, and the world felt suspended, as if waiting for us to decide what to do with the fragile truth between us. Returning home, the tension lingered, but there was also a strange sense of release. The letter had destroyed the illusion of perfection, but it had also opened a door. For the first time, we were communicating without masks, without pretenses, and even though the path forward was uncertain, it was real. Then, just when I thought I could breathe, Claire appeared unexpectedly, leaning against the doorway with an unreadable expression. I didn't tell you everything, she said softly, almost too calmly. There's more you need to know, and it's not just about Daniel. My heart sunk. Another secret? Another revelation? The fragile bridge we were building now trembled under the weight of new unknowns. And in that moment, I realized that Christmas Eve had been only the beginning. The truth was a living thing, moving, growing, shaping everything in its path. And I had no choice but to follow it, step by careful step, into a world I could no longer ignore. The days following Claire's final warning were a storm of emotions. I spent hours replaying every conversation, every look, every word exchanged with Daniel and his sister. The weight of the secrets had been suffocating, yet I felt a strange clarity. I knew that to move forward, I had to face the truth entirely, no matter how painful. That evening, Daniel and I sat across from each other at the kitchen table. The room was quiet, the soft hum of the refrigerator and the faint crackle of the fireplace filling the space between us. His eyes searched mine, pleading silently for understanding. I told you everything, he said, voice low but steady. Every mistake, every secret, every choice I ever tried to hide. I wanted to protect you, yes, but I see now that I only made it worse. I can't change the past, but I can promise you my honesty from now on. I nodded slowly, letting the tension drain from my shoulders. I know, and I believe you, but it won't be simple. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. It's fragile, and it will take time. He reached for my hand, fingers trembling, and I felt the raw vulnerability in his touch. I'll do whatever it takes, he whispered. I'll face the consequences of everything as long as you let me be with you. I took a deep breath, allowing myself to truly see him. Not the version I had believed in, not the version his family tried to protect, but the real man, flawed, scared, and human. And in that moment, I realized that love wasn't about perfection. It was about honesty, courage, and the willingness to face the darkest parts of life together. Then we face it together, I said, squeezing his hand. The truth, the past, everything. We don't pretend anymore. We take it all and we decide what comes next, as us. Daniel smiled, a mixture of relief and awe in his expression. It was the first time in weeks I saw him completely unguarded, and I felt a weight lift from my heart. The past was painful, but it no longer controlled us. Over the following weeks, we rebuilt our lives carefully. Conversations that were once avoided became open and honest. Laughter returned to the house, genuine and unforced, and the tension that had clung to every corner slowly dissolved. Even Claire, who had been both the harbinger of truth and the keeper of secrets, began to engage with us more openly, her eyes softer, her glances no longer heavy with guilt. When our wedding finally arrived, I looked at Daniel across the aisle, seeing every flaw, every scar, every truth laid bare. And I loved him more for it. We had survived the storm of betrayal and secrets, emerging stronger not because life had been easy, but because we had faced it together, without lies or pretenses. As the vows were spoken, I realized something essential. The heart of love isn't safety or perfection. It's honesty, courage, forgiveness, and the choice to stay even when the world feels fragile. And in that moment, I knew that whatever came next, we would face it as one, truthful, united, and unbreakable. Christmas Eve had changed everything, yes, but it had also given us the most precious gift, a chance to love fully, honestly, and without fear. And that was a gift worth everything we had endured.